Welcome everybody to the show. This is Counter Clipping episode 274. Am I right about that? I think I am. Anyway, we're going to talk tonight about the games on GMT's reprint list that are on P500. So before we get started with any of that, I'm getting a pop-up notification here from YouTube. Hopefully everything is working correctly. Turn on the video. The video works. All right, very good. All right, so new technology. I'll talk about that a little bit, but first, I'd like to remind everybody to please do like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to help support the channel, there's plenty of ways to do that in the video description. Big shout out and thanks to the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair. We would not be able to keep doing this if it weren't for the patrons, and our good friends at Noble Knight Games, the official sponsors of the Counter Clipping show. I am going to need to obtain a fresh clip from our good friends at Noble Knight because I have lost it. That was probably in the big purge that resulted in a whole hard drive worth of stuff getting wiped out, most of which was saved, but not all of it. So, in any event, I have no particular news of note this evening, so I don't see any particular reason why we shouldn't get into things fairly quickly. I am drinking Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Rye. This is bottled at 47%. I may need to put water in it, but we will see. It's good stuff. I'm not the world's biggest fan of Jack Daniel's. They're like their regular bourbon. It's certainly a classic. It's certainly suitable to drink on the rocks or mixed with Coke or whatever. But I'm not a big fan. My mic is low? Really? I could fix that. All right, that should help. Could be positioning too. The arm that holds the microphone has a little bit of swing in it due to the mounting being crappy. Gwen Manifold asks if the job search is going okay. I guess it's going fine, but I don't have a job yet, so to just clear that up. So let me start going through this. Now, we're not going to talk about absolutely every single reprint that GMT has on P500 right now for one reason, and yes, John Krantz last night gave me this idea. One reason is there's like 100 of them, so I can't cover them all. Board Gaming Geezer got laid off as well. Yeah, you know, you are, I'd imagine, in a similar situation as me, where I've been laid off a dozen times. I don't know about a dozen times, but it's been at least half a dozen times. In situations very similar to this. Companies downsizing. In this case, the company's owned by, well, I guess I don't know yet. Company's owned by Apollo, a venture capital firm, and the last two lengthy employers I've had have both been owned by Apollo, and they both decided they were going to downsize and get rid of everybody. So at least it wasn't just me, it was a general bloodletting. In any case, I don't have any news to report. You folks will be the fourth people to know when I get a job, actually, because, well, maybe the fifth. Because the wife's got to know, my mother's got to know, and my financial people have to know. So those will be the first people to be notified, and you will be on the top of the second list. So let's get started with this bad boy. New screen technology here. We're running everything out of just OBS. That is, I forget what it stands for, but it's a free, I'm not even sure at this point without checking if it's actually open source or not, but it's functionally open source. I'm going to start with one of the things that I am most excited about, which we should get pretty soon. This is Vance Von Voorhees Army Group Barbarossa Army Group South 2nd Edition. This has been on P500 for approximately 35 years, and I can't wait to get a new one. And I know that Vance is keeping himself busy, and as long as these continue to come out, I will be pleased. And we'll get to Typhoon in just a minute. Danny Zachary has put the Thin Red Line Games in the chat. This is true. If you, this is actually the news that I should have announced. Ha ha. That's how organized I am. As Danny points out, the Dogs of War, which is a reprint of the original Dogs of War from Thin Red Line Games, is up for pre-order, actually. And First Man in Rome looks really sweet, too. So Danny has put the link to Thin Red Line Games' website on the chat at the bottom of the Dogs of War article, or the First Man in Rome article. You'll find, send your email here, and then they will notify you by email when the game is ready to charge, and you'll have, like, I don't know, a week or something like that to pay for it. And then you'll get it. Why is the volume so low? I don't know. Is it still low? Open broadcasting software. Yeah, that's it, Vince Ree. I just can't remember these fine details. All right, I'm trying to get that to stick. Hopefully that helps. I have got my microphone gain set to maximum at the moment, so it's not going to get any louder. I will just have to be louder, which is not normally a problem for me. All right, so Barbarossa Army Group South. This is in the late stages of getting ready for preparation, and is probably the next big thing that GMT is doing that will ship soon, that I'm incredibly excited about. Lots of us have been waiting for these games to be reprinted for many years, and I'm finally pleased to be able to say that we are getting them at a pretty nice, reasonable, steady pace at this point. We had Army Group North last year, unless I'm misremembering it. It was very early this year. And we already got a reprint of Army Group Center. And completing the quad will be Typhoon. I don't have any information as to whether there is any current intention or plan to redo Barbarossa Kiev to Rostov and Barbarossa Crimea. It seems to me that those two could be put in the same box. And I think the idea was batted about at one point, but I don't have any actual up-to-date information on that. Everything seems to be fine. Everything seems to be fine checking on the stream from over here, so that's cool. Just making sure that everything is working correctly, because like I said, we are on new technology. StreamYard handles all this for you, but it's like $500 a month. So yeah, I'm not willing to pay that. They did jack the rates up big time too. And you can like contact them and argue with them, and they'll knock the price down, but it's still expensive, and we're not paying for that at this exact moment. Kiev to Rostov is, oh yeah, Charles Latour. I think somebody said something about Worthington, where somebody had some issues. I don't know, maybe they hired a yokel to do the shipping, and maybe there have been some mistakes lately. But I would think that Worthington, with whom I have had a little bit of contact, would be on top of responding to an email or through whatever customer service function they have. All right, so dropping Army Group South for the moment. Can't wait to see it. There will be video. Is the third printing of Unconditional Surrender. Now, I've played this. I've done a video or two on it. I have kind of met the designer, Salvasta, but he was like in the middle of a conversation, and I was standing there, and I didn't want to interrupt. So I don't know if he thinks he's met me or not. Probably not. I do think this is a really solid game. I think it's really neat mechanically. I wish it played faster, but I do think that the neat mechanics are one of the things that cause it to play at the rate that it plays. You can finish this in a weekend, but I think if everybody knows what they're doing and nobody's horsing around, it's also a lot harder to see the chats, to be completely honest. So I do think this is a solid game. I do think that the Unconditional Surrender Western Campaigns package, which is that out or is that about to be out? I do think that will mitigate the concerns I have about playtime with this particular game. I just wish it played a little faster. Other than that, I think it's really not. Well, I guess I feel like the diplomacy model is not everything that it could be, but it's not really a game about diplomacy, is it? So I have had folks ship me things separately in the past. I don't know that Worthington has been one of those publishers, but I think I've only actually ordered from them maybe twice. Yeah, Joe Caparula says that Western Campaigns has been out for a while. That's what I thought, but I don't have it, so things being what they are. So you can help out, by the way, by using the Noble Knight affiliate link in the video description. We'll talk more about that in approximately 50 minutes. So Conflict Board Gaming, welcome back to the show. What is this thing in the background? That's the thing where I couldn't find the Noble Knight spot. So I do think this is $52. I think that's worthwhile. I think you can get easily $52 worth of playtime and enjoyment out of this. There are also a bunch of scenarios. And the scenarios, I feel like they're modeled after the scenarios in Axis Empires, actually, because it's not exactly programmed instruction, but the scenarios are set up that way. Like you get the Poland scenario, and then the France scenario, and then the Norway and Denmark scenario, which involves some airborne or naval or something like that. So the scenarios will kind of gradually lead you up to speed on the full game system as you go. It's a very well-designed game, and I think it's an excellent game. Do I still have this? I've got Unconditional Surrender Case Blue, which is the little mini-game that they did. No, Joe, I'm afraid I've lost the capability, at least for now, I'm still working on this, to highlight chats. So I will try to remember. I've been terrible about being in the habit of doing this. I will try to remember to read the chat off. So remember, we had years go by where there was no highlighting of chats. So, all right, Ukraine 43 by Mark Simonich. Now, I think this is going to be another substantial revision of Ukraine 43. This will be the third printing, $43, totally worth it. Mark Simonich is an outstanding designer. And a multi-talented designer as well, considering that he does all the art and stuff as well. Brant from the Armchair Dragoons is here. Remember, folks, too, Origins is next, this weekend, actually. So if you are dragging your feet on that and you are planning to come, now's the time. I am planning to be there on Saturday and Saturday only. So if you see me, say hi. I'll be wearing an Ardwulf's Lair t-shirt, and I am the easiest person in the world to find. And the sideburns may return in celebration of Origins too. So, all right, Marty Sample agrees. It is this coming weekend, and I've actually got to go down twice to Columbus this week because Fucko is getting married. How about that? So, and I just got word today that one of my old Central Ohio Columbus buddies, who we used to war game with, is moving up here. Cool. So, more people to game with. And not that there's no people to game with now. I'm just lazy. All right. So, Ukraine 43. So, this is the Zoc bond system. I believe it does use Zoc bonds. I've never owned this, never played it, but this is something that I definitely want. It is, do we have... Third edition will have historical setups for all scenarios and an improved reinforcement schedule, and they'll add some units and remove some units. Cool. So I don't know if it's going to be quite as... We're still streaming, folks, but we lost the screen share because I'm monitoring it in Chrome like a dick, and none of that works. So we'll figure that out, and I'll blab about Ukraine 43 and how great this general family of games is. I haven't played this one, but I have played Stalingrad 42, Holland 44, Normandy 44, Ardennes 44. I haven't played Salerno, and there's at least one other one that I haven't played. So here's the screen share back again. So that's nice. I need to transfer all of my streaming activities to Firefox, which at least last night worked okay for the time that I had it up in. John C. from the sunny Philippines, welcome back to the show. He has played North Africa 41 last week, and I do have that. I haven't played that either. I don't know if Mrs. Fucko will be joining us or not. So Brant is already in Ohio, no doubt staying at the folks' home and getting the crust cut off, the peanut butter, the PB&J sandwiches, and all that jazz. Brant's folks are lovely people, by the way, and I'm making fun of him, not them. So this is another one that I'm probably, I don't know, it depends when it's going to hit. I mean, I could have good news next week, and I'd be putting in a bunch of orders. Who knows? But this is definitely one that I will end up acquiring one way or the other. I've got basically all the rest of them. The fifth printing of the legendary Empire of the Sun. I think it is probably the best wargame released in the 1990s. It was the 90s, no, it was the 2000s actually. In that case, I'm a little less sure about that. But this is a fantastic game. It's, of course, Mark Herman, covers the war in the Pacific from Pearl Harbor to the very end. Although most people, and I think that you should usually skip Pearl Harbor because it's like the first turn. It's like kind of scripted. You can just start on the second turn. Like the default starting stage is the second turn. Africa 40, North Africa 40 is on the way as well, as Board Gaming points out. Dustin Mitchell is about to dive into the system via Salerno. Salerno is probably the ideal entry point, but I mean, if you've got some Hex Encounter wargame under your belt, I wouldn't worry about finding the optimal entry point into that series. They're all relatively straightforward. Salerno 43 is the smallest game in the series, but it's approximately the same complexity as all the other ones, and they don't vary a great deal in complexity. And in fact, they don't vary that much in mechanics. There's just enough to sometimes trip you up if you're not careful, but there's a summary of like rules changes for this particular volume in the new games. So for those of folks who haven't played Empire of the Sun, highly recommended by me, and it is a marvelous and epic making game. Joe Caparula says that Empire of the Sun is the perfect mix of CDG and heavy war game. I kind of agree. Some people do describe it as a monster game. I don't think it is, but I will not argue with people who say that it feels like it is, because it really does have a kind of an epic sweep to it. Again, you can play this in a long afternoon with two players that know what they're doing, and this is pretty much a two-player game. There is a bot that will let you run either faction as a bot in the game in the more recent printings of Empire of the Sun, so it's eminently solitaire. But that said, it's a CDG. I don't care too much. I'm an idiot, so I will forget what cards are in the other hand that I'm not looking at that exact moment. So I don't think it's that big of a deal for me to just double hand this. But other folks might disagree. And the GMT solo system, designed by a friend of the channel, Stuka Joe, actually it doesn't. There's bots in here. We don't need that. I'm thinking of something else. John C. points out that North Africa 41 is quite different. That's true. It is. That is kind of a cousin game. It's similar in some ways. But it's not identical. It doesn't have Zoc bonds. I don't remember because I haven't played it, whether it's got determined defense or not. It is similar. I'd say it's more similar than The Legend Begins, which it is the new version of. But it's not technically a Zoc bond game. John C. says that when he finished Empire of the Sun on Vassal, he felt like he could put that on his gravestone. Yeah, this is one of those games that magically feels bigger than it is. So, all right. So next we have, this is not the new cover, one would presume. This is the old cover of Barbarossa. Well, actually, it was just called Typhoon. It wasn't Barbarossa anything. The new version will be called Barbarossa Typhoon because it is in the GMT Vance von Borries East Front series. This is a subject I am super duper interested in, and I've played a decent amount of via mostly OCS, to be completely honest about it. Scott Bell, welcome back to the show, says that Zocs are semi-bonds in North Africa 41, but it does have determined defense. That sounds right, actually. And remember, Dean Essig thought Zoc bonds were such a good idea that he put them into Ardennes too. So this is going to be a pretty big game. I want to say, what do we got here for components? I actually haven't looked at that. So there's so pretty much it's a 3-map game, but you're also going to get this, and I think this is, yeah, I'm positive this is new, this Moscow inset map. This was something that was introduced to the series later on after Typhoon, and I think it is a good idea because you're going to have a decent amount of congestion on this map, even though the density on the map isn't necessarily that high. I don't think it's as high as OCS. the like multi-unit formations in this series are typically 3, 4, well, usually 4 or 5 units. In OCS, they might be 12 in some cases. This is a series that I have been desperately wishing to get back to the table and played for several years now, especially now since there are two new ones out, and it's a space. It takes up a lot of space. Unlike Army Group North and Army Group Center, I can fit the entire map display for Typhoon on my table, which is great. Gwen Manifold asks, how does the... Now I'm clicking on the comments like I can highlight them. Asks, how does Advanced Von Boris series compare to OCS? I mean, they're very similar in some ways. In detail, however, they are quite different. They both have supply as kind of a critical aspect, but in the Barbarossa series, the East Front series, you are not tracking individual supply points and trucking them around the map. You have supply units that you expend to do things. Chris Yap asks, do I have a preference between OCS and EFS? I'm going to have to say OCS because I've played like a lot more OCS than I've played of EFS. It's been a long time since then. The relatively lower counter density, I think, helps the Barbarossa games play a little more speedily than OCS. But then again, you know, a lot of these games are quite large too, but they're all rich with scenarios. They don't necessarily have a large number of scenarios, but there's a very good selection of scenarios in every one of these games. This is one that I played back in the 90s, something like that. At some point, it is probably worth revisiting the East Front series versus OCS, but I would like to play the revised version of the series before I feel confident in doing that. All right, next up is a game I've got from Ted Racer, I, Napoleon. It is a solitaire game. You are playing Napoleon throughout his career. There's an expansion on the way as well. I have not played this. This was very warmly received, however. And from what I kind of got as far as setting it up and like starting the first turn, and just for time reasons, I didn't get any further than that. But solid game. Oh, yeah, okay, cool. I see that, let's see here. Pretty neat looking game, and a dedicated solitaire too. So those of you who are concerned about whether the game is soloable or not, you don't have to worry with this one. Profidus Albion says that the biggest difference is that EFS supplies are managed in a very old school way, whereas OCS emphasizes the unique logistics rules that highlight the scarcity of supply. Yeah, I'm going to have to unpack that at length at another time, I think. I, Napoleon, Queen of the Skies, says Rob Taylor. It doesn't mechanically speaking, it doesn't really resemble B-17 Queen of the Skies, but I mean, I think it's kind of easy to make the comparison, yeah. And they do have a neoprene mat, as Danny Zachary points out, for that, which is neat. And we'll definitely, I mean, you're like kind of putting cards around the board, and the neoprene mat is better for that because it's easier to pick the cards up. So moving on, Fields of Despair, and I think this one's getting pretty close to a reprint as well. 509, it's made its number. This is a designed by Kurt Keckley. I played this at Origins quite a few years ago now, and I was surprised at the depth of simulation present in this, considering that it's a block game. I consider myself a little wiser about that now. It is a block game. If you hate block games, you probably won't like this. But there's a lot of really cool mechanical ideas in there. You're tracking the progress on the East Front on a track. So that's like a factor in the game. There's a lot of neat mechanics and ideas in here, and I'll be delighted. I never managed to actually acquire this, by the way. So, so worth folks' time. And again, $69. It is a 2-player game. I think you could do it in teams. Second printing will be identical to the first printing, so it's not a second edition. So also worth your time. I mean, I'm going to say that about most of these games because these are the games I have something to say about, and I like them. I left all expansions off this list for tonight, and I eliminated a couple of other things. Like, I just don't have anything intelligent to say about Border Reavers, for example, because I haven't played it, haven't looked at it, I'm not terribly interested in it just because of the topic, and I dropped it from the list for that reason. Blue Ronin Rob says that he thinks Fields of Despair was printed without hitting P500 high up in GMT's queue. Yes, it is, and it might. But I think it's worth people's time, especially if you're interested in World War I, and you would like a World War I West Front game that feels a little more dynamic than playing the West Front in like Guns of August or something like that. Brent says he's pretty sure in 2017 that he had Fields of Despair, so it has been almost 10 years. That sounds right. And as Brant points out, they do have Illusions of Glory next year. So, this is by Perry Silverman, I believe, and it is the Paths of Glory system, so CDG, on the Paths of Glory model, which is like a little different than the standard Mark Herman model from Empire of the Sun or For the People. But narrowly focusing on the Eastern Front specifically. Do we have an image of the map here? We might. We do not. You can find it on BGG. Oh, here it is, actually. So yeah, we do have the Isonzo front in northern Italy here between the Italians and the Austrians as well. I just wanted to mention that was covered. And of course, we do have some action over here in the Ottoman Empire. As well. Joe Gabriella says that Illusions of Glory is his least favorite of the three, but it's still great. Rob Taylor says it's bad. Joe says it needs the errata. Conflict Board Gaming asks, is DG I take to be Decision Games going to be at Gen Con? I think they go to Gen Con. I'm not sure. They will definitely be at Origins, however, and I'll point out that they came to Buckeye Game Fest this year, which was absolutely awesome. All right, so Illusions of Glory. This is one that I'm a big fan of Paths of Glory. I think it's terrific, but this is one that I haven't picked up and have not had the chance to examine other than what I have already said. $50 pre-order price seems reasonable to me. Chariots of Fire second printing. This will feature a major graphic update to the booklets and player aid cards to bring these components up to the standards of the most recent released games in the series. There will be a comprehensive rulebook edit. All known errata will be addressed and incorporated, and they will be enhanced with additional examples. And the scenario content will be the same as the first printing. So I'm kind of feeling at this point like I don't need this since I have the original printing. So this is part of the Great Battles of History series. Design here is from Richard Berg and Mark Herman. And it is, Warfare in the Bronze Age, Ancient Mesopotamia. I'm super interested in this subject. There are very few games on this subject, and most of them are sort of area control games, kind of on the Civ model. And, well, I have no particular problem with that. It's always nice to have actual war games on the topics I'm interested in, too. There is also Richard Berg's Genesis, which is a CDG, which I've got, which I'd really like to try, but it is a multiplayer CDG. Not that will bother me particularly. So once again, $50. It's going to have 840 counters and 3 back-printed maps. And I should mention the Troy scenario, because this is only a map. The Troy scenario is based on the Iliad and features the heroes of the Trojan War, and they can get in hero duels and stuff, and it's pretty cool. And it's one of the specific battles out of this series that out of this volume in this series that I'd really like to play. So I am delighted that this is coming back into print, and you can see that its number, and it wasn't announced that long ago, number-wise, it seems to be doing quite well. And there is an expansion on the way for it as well, which I'm also very interested in. Perfidious Albion mentions that there were a number of Ancients games put up by 3W way back. Yeah, there's a couple, and at least one of those, I don't remember the title off the top of my head. At least one or two of those were intriguing looking. And there's a few kind of rare games. There's also, this is grand tactical stuff, right? So these are the battles. where technically I kind of lean into the operational and or strategic stuff. But I am happy to have this in my current collection. All right, next up, we'll buzz through this. Enemy Coast Ahead, the Dam Buster raid. We'll hit in a moment the Doolittle raid. They are very similar games in terms of design approach. These are both solitaire games, both designed by Jerry White, both extremely well presented and quite cool because there's, I think in both of them, there are 10 scenarios. And the initial scenario is like, okay, you're over the dam and you're going to roll dice to release the bouncing bombs, okay? And the Doolittle raid, I think you're over Tokyo and about to release the bombs. And then as you step through the scenarios, you kind of wind the clock back further and further into the mission until by the time you get to the 10th campaign scenario, you are doing the mission planning and the counterintelligence and all that stuff, and it's really, really neat. Chris Yap suggests a Samurai Ron reprint dual pack. I think that's a great idea, GMT. If you're watching, get on that. I would probably end up buying that, to be completely honest. 3W, Joe Caprula says if it's a 3W product, it doesn't count. There are some good games that 3W did. I did a video on the best of 3W. They did a lot of stuff that I'm not necessarily thinking holds up all that well nowadays. Let me move this so it's easier to friggin' read. All right, there we go. All right, so Slugonics, welcome back to the show. He thinks Alan Ray has been carrying the torch of the Berg Ancients. I hope so. I hope there is somebody. We have gotten, since Berg's passing, I think we've gotten maybe 2 GBOH expansions, but no entirely new games. I would be delighted if anybody, Mark or anybody else would like to continue that series. I'm a big fan. All right. John C. says that Rough Swordsman did a good video on Doolittle. I've seen that video. I agree. Nevsky. So this is the first game in the Living Campaign series, and it is one that I still have not played, even though I have owned it since it was released, and I am on the hook for the second edition, whatever the update kit is called. So, neat series, medieval operational. It is point-to-point, more or less. I mean, it doesn't really matter if I say whether it's point-to-point area. If we have the map, do we have the map? We do have the map. So it's pretty much point-to-point. There are roads and rivers that you can travel along to get to the various points. So, neat looking series. There's a lot of interesting looking games coming out in this series. And again, it's medieval operational, which we see very little of. Grooven Hooves, welcome to the show, says he'd like to see a Britain Stands Alone second edition. That would actually be interesting. And John C. asked if he has seen Sea Lion from Decision, the more relatively recent, I think it was about 3 years ago now, Sea Lion game from Decision. It actually looks pretty, I haven't played it, but it actually looks pretty slick. All right, so moving on from Nevsky, we have, we're now turning to the Next War series. Original series designer on this was Gene Billingsley, based on Crisis Korea 1995, but the series has kind of morphed somewhat since then, in the hands, very capable hands of Mitch Land. Sorry, I don't know who Mitch Ray would be. Marty Samples says he'd recommend Plantagenet as a better entry into the system. Plantagenet is probably the best. I didn't look any of this stuff up on BGG, but I'm guessing it might be the best rated game of the series on BGG because it was very warmly received. Plantagenet is one that I don't have. I've got Nevsky, I've got Inferno, I've got Seljuk, which looks fantastic, by the way, and I haven't managed to play any of them. We'll see if any of that can happen if we go to try and play it at SD-HistCon North. I'll slip in a recent arrivals segment here once we get through this large list. All right, so next we're into Pakistan. This is often pointed out as an ideal entry point into this system. I've played, this is actually the one that I have played a little bit of. Now, we played the basic game rules. All of the games in this series have both a basic set of rules and an advanced set of rules. It is one of those situations, and I'm not saying this is universally the case, but with this series, I think it is true. I do think you want to aim towards playing this game series with the advanced rules, because they will add a great deal, especially in terms of air and naval and other, not just ground combat stuff. The tech war, the cyber war, all these things are modeled in various games of this series or in the various expansion packages. Scott Bell needs to start lobbying for an SD-HistCon Pacific Northwest. Why not? I think that's a fantastic idea. I'll mention it next time I talk to Harold. I also, as Conflict Board Gaming points out, he's got the first edition, and he's not going to upgrade. I have no intentions of upgrading any of these games either. The only game in the series I don't have is Next War Iran. I think it's a really neat Modern Warfare series. I think it takes itself very seriously. Now, that said, I don't know enough about Next War Iran to know if it has anything interesting to say about the current conflict in Iran. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know enough about it, because it's one that I don't have. Next War Poland looks really good. Next War Taiwan and Next War Korea are the ones that I would like to play, again, with the advanced rules. As Kevin Featherly points out, he says he played a scenario of Next War Poland and found it pretty promising, ordered Next War Iran, only to find out that the actual Next War in Iran looks nothing like the game. Okay, that answers that question. All right, returning to the coin, actually not returning, we haven't talked about the coin series yet. This is a game from Bruce Mansfield, Gandhi. This is, I've got this, I bought it when it came out, haven't played it yet. It's one of the coin games that I have not played. It is very interesting looking, for a couple of reasons. One of which is that there are non-violent factions, in it. That's, keeping an eye on the chat here, just to be safe. Gandhi second printing, $59. It's a nice game. I don't know. This is just errata changes. It's one I'd like to play, and hopefully I'll get the chance to play it at some point. It's doesn't depart super duper radically from the rest of the coin games that I've played, and I've played a number of them. But it does have the non-violent factions, which I'd like to try. Also, if you haven't seen it, there's I think Richard Attenborough film Gandhi with Ben Kingsley, the movie that made Ben Kingsley famous. And that's a fantastic movie if you haven't seen it. Michael Shearer says, nonviolent factions in a war game. I'm one of those people who feels like how wargamey a coin game is depends on what coin game we're talking about. Some of them feel pretty wargamey. Others really don't. And while I haven't played this, from looking at it, this one probably doesn't. John C. played Gandhi with the Players Aid guys at WBC. Awesome. That's those guys playing games and showing up at every event. Now, this is sort of an expansion, but it is standalone, so I counted it, and I'm personally waiting for it. This is Serpents of the Seas. This is part of the Flying Colors series by Mike Nagel. This covers the American Revolution and the War of 1812. How many battles are in here? It doesn't say. It doesn't say, but this is the only entry in the series that I do not have, so I need this. I like the Flying Color series quite a bit, and it will be identical to the first printing, except that they'll correct any known errata. And, you know, usually, actually, it's only 2 counter sheets. Most of these games actually have, like, a lot of counter sheets. So, I am... However, yeah, it is standalone. So $48, I think that's a pretty good price if you ask me. Perfidious Albion says that this covers basically what Wooden Ships and Iron Men does, which sounds about right. Now, Wooden Ships and Iron Men does some Napoleonic stuff too, but Mike Reed hates passive-aggressive Euros. I mean, isn't playing a Euro about that? I mean, it does kind of feel like that, at least with a lot of Euros in my fairly limited Euro experience. I don't know. It does kind of feel like a passive-aggressive strategy can profit you in a lot of those games. John C. says that People Power, which is the Philippines one, and Cuba Libre are excellent entry points to coin. I have not played People Power, but I have played Cuba Libre. I think I played the Mafia. I did not win. I don't remember how badly I lost, but I know I didn't win. I know I lost. Slagonix points out, quite correctly, that Gen Con is not really a good source for wargame sales, at least if you're paying for a booth. The wargame auctions at Gen Con are fantastic, though that I'm totally prepared to believe. And honestly, if I was going to Gen Con, which looks goddamn unlikely for this year, that I would 100% spend some time in the auction. So... moving on from Serpents of the Seas, we have the 5th. GBOH is going to be relatively well represented in this list. A, because I like it, and B, because there's a fairly big pile of GBOH games available for reprint on P500 right now. This one looks like it's doing okay. Number-wise, this is honestly, this is a safe email to the printer, in my opinion, because this is going to sell one way or the other. Now, this is the deluxe 5th edition. I believe I have the previous printing of this. So the question I have is, what does this include that I don't already have? No changes to the maps, some counter errata. The C3I, yeah, I think this is going to include a bunch of the C3I scenarios, so the Hammer of God stuff. I kind of want that stuff, actually. I don't want to buy this again. I don't want to clip this a 3rd time and organize it. John C. says that a Jest of Robin Hood, which I haven't played, so I left off the list, but it is available for reprint on P500. It went over like gangbusters. For good and ill in the case of the release of that particular game. But it's an interesting subject. Not a lot of games on the French Revolution that aren't about, like, that don't start in 1805. So that makes it immediately attractive to me. And this is about actually, not that French Revolution. This is about, it's about the Paris Commune. So, H1644 says you can buy an upgrade kit for SPQR. That I will probably do. I'll have to research that. But I've got everything else for SPQR at this point. And this I've played. It's fantastic. It's Roman battles. What are the battles? The famous battles. Beneventum is pretty famous. Bagrados Plains, I've heard of it, but well, maybe a lot of people haven't. Trebia is pretty interesting battle. Zama, of course, which is Hannibal versus Scipio in North Africa. Classic battle. Magnesia. Muthul River. Most of these were in the previous editions. Other than these 6 or 7 scenarios right here, these 6 scenarios, or 7 actually, that came out either in the SPQR Player's Guide, which I do have, or in the C3I Hammer of God expansion. I would like to know, however, I guess I don't know for sure, because I don't have that issue. It's pretty hard to get old issues of C3I. Realtime01, welcome to the show, says, this SPQR is first foray into that era. This is a very good first foray into this era. This is, I think, people call it the ASL of Ancients, and I think, in a sense, I kind of vibe with that, but in another sense, I think people might overuse that metaphor. It is not mechanically similar to ASL in any way. The maps are sometimes reused for other battles, but that's easy to do for ancient battles because they usually took place on a big open plain. So terrain is not something you can necessarily count on. But you do get tons and tons and tons of different battles. I mean, what's this cost? $73 pre-order, $115 regular price, and I'm going to say it's worth every penny of $115 because you're getting an enormous quantity of Roman-era battles from things like the Punic Wars, for example, and some other stuff. There's a decent chunk of Rome versus Gauls here too, and I think there's at least. I'm trying to remember my historical sequencing. I don't think we're getting Pyrrhic War in this. I might be wrong. And this is an Alan Ray developed game too. So, and as Danny points out, you end up with a lot of counters. And I'll be honest, it's not really obvious to me what the best way to sort these counters in really any GBOH game is. In most of the games, it's not much of a problem, but in the really huge multi-packs like this and Great Battles of Alexander, it's really kind of hard to figure out exactly where everything's going to go. I ended up going in baggies for most. Pretty sure I did it with Great Battles of Alexander as well. Perfidious Albion says that most of these scenarios are Republic era. All of these scenarios are Republic era, as I recall. I mean, these Judean battles are something different. Rome was not in charge of that region in 160s BC, but otherwise, I don't know anything about any of those battles. So, but that's why I want them. Yeah. Slagonic says that his SBQR box is stuffed to the gills with tiny drug bags. Do I have those here? No, I sorted them. I buy my baggies from Walmart. Okay, they're in the craft section. You can buy like 100 baggies for like $3. I ended up by mistake buying like 3 packs of the little super tiny heroin baggies. That's what I call them, and I make my wife mad every time when I call them that. Yeah, these would be the Maccabees, wouldn't they? And yes, these are going to be included in the next SPQR. Groovin' in Hooves asks if Unhappy King Charles is on the reprint track. So the good news is, yes, it has already been reprinted. The bad news is it wasn't reprinted by GMT. I forget, somebody will put it in the chat, but I forget who published that. It might have been, I don't think it was Phalanx. But it is with a different publisher now. You can find that on BGG. And the new version of it looks really sharp, too. Next up is Mark Herman's seminal solitaire masterpiece, Peloponnesian War. All right, Slagonic says that was Phalanx. So Peloponnesian War is a fascinating game on this topic. It was originally released by Victory Games in the 80s or maybe early 90s. It is a Mark Herman design. It is a strictly... I believe the new edition actually has rules where you could play it with two people, but by design, it's a solitaire game. And it's got a really interesting mechanic where you're playing either as the Spartans or the Athenians. And if you are doing well, but not well enough to win, you will find yourself switching sides at the beginning of the next turn. It's a really fascinating mechanic, and I'm a little surprised that nobody else that I'm aware of has really tried to do that. W.S. Clulin, thanks for coming by. Thanks for the... I was extremely pleased with the interview with John Kranz yesterday. They've got a number of... I'm going to put some water in this. They've got a number of very exciting things in the cooker. And I felt so strongly that it was a fantastic interview that I went and posted it on Facebook. So it's anything that gets me on Facebook, you know it's something serious. $50. I've got the original. I had the original Then I got the new one, so I got rid of the. I still haven't played it. Uh, then I got rid of the old one, and then I got rid of the new one. I'm not sure why, so I bought the old one again. So right now I have the original Victory Games version of Peloponnesian War, and I'm fine with that. I mean, certainly the GMT game has very much nicer components. So, all right, I'm going to open the door because it's approximately 108 degrees in here right now, and I have no idea why. All right, so moving on from Peloponnesian War. We have another coin entry in the series, and this is one of the 2 or possibly 3 coin games that I will usually mention as my favorite coin game, and it depends when you ask me. Pendragon, The Fall of Rome and Britain. This is by Morgane Guyon-Reti, French designer. I think she's French. I'm not sure if she's French or French-Canadian, but in any case, she speaks French much better than I do. Terrific game. Post-Roman Britain. That's another historical era I'm super interested in. There's not a lot of games on it. There are not none, but there's not that many. And this is the one that was up my alley. There's a new one called, newish one that was like a big splash Kickstarter thing called, oh, I can't remember what it was called. And it was cool because they actually used some Old English in the game. But I like Pendragon a lot. I've played it multiple times. I think it's a terrific game. All right, next up is a coin game that I have no experience with, but I am also interested in the topic. Vijayanagara, the Deccan Empires of Medieval India, 1290 to 1398. The second printing of this. This was in one of those Game Jam type things, and it won. I think it won. And it ended up getting expanded and done by GMT. And this is, I don't know if this is formally a part of the coin series. I don't think it is, but it is definitely coin adjacent. I haven't really looked at it particularly closely, but they sure got some cool images in here, don't they? All right, well, there's a whole bunch of historical context here. It looks good. It's a coin game, more or less. I think John C. points out that it's now available on Rally the Troops. That's true. And it is part of the Irregular Conflict series, which is also cool. Gwen Manifold, thank you. That was the game I was talking about. Brett Walda. The etymology is not the same, and I might be overstepping on this, but the Brett Walda was the king in post-Roman Britain. That was the name for the king. Mike Reed is flouting our with demonetization here. Now, you're cool, don't get me wrong, but all right, Red Storm. This is not designed. No, I'm wrong about that. This was designed by Lee Brimacombe Wood. It is part of a family of related games that also include things like Elusive Victory and Bloody April, the GMT Bloody April, not the old SPI Bloody April, and there's several others. This is one that, is it the one that I've played? I think so. It's hard for me to keep track nowadays because I'm old and becoming senile. Red Storm is modern conflict. Air war over Germany, 1987. It is pretty cool. I think it is more tactical than I expected it to be. I kind of thought I was signing up for a more operational air game, and I know Stigler has argued with me about this repeatedly. He says they're operational, and they definitely have operational aspects, and that's what attracted me to the series in the first place. This is, of course, the famous game that I bought all the expansions for before realizing that my copy of the game has gone missing, and I don't know, to this day, have no idea what happened to it. I'm reasonably confident that it isn't going to just magically turn up. Mike Reed says that Lee didn't design Red Storm. He's adamant that he's only the designer of Downtown. Others that adapted the system. Actually, it says Douglas Bush here. But on the cover, it says System Design by Lee Brimacombe Wood. Okay, so to clarify, thank you, Mike Reed, for forcing me to actually look at it. Game design here is by Douglas Bush. System designer by Lee Brimacombe Wood. And I think there's another expansion for this coming as well. Conflict board game used to play Air Superiority by GDW, a classic, which I've never played. I haven't played that many air games. We did naval war games. We should probably do air games. I could count the 4 air games I've ever played on and yes, Flat Top will be one of them. All right. Ted Racer's The Dark Valley Deluxe Edition second printing. So I believe that makes this the 3rd printing of The Dark Valley. This is a chit pull system where Ted's innovation here is that the chit pools themselves evolve over the course of the game to reflect the changes in both Soviet and German doctrine that occurred historically. It's a really neat game. 2 maps. The new edition, this one, and I think the last one, actually has the maps mounted. The first printing I had did not. Reverse side of one Dark Valley mounted map will be the Barbarossa to Berlin map. I've heard good things about Barbarossa to Berlin. But... I'll have to look at the bit rate. Nobody's complaining, so... And for this show, I'm not sure it matters. So, $55, it's a decent-sized game. You can play this in a long weekend, I think. We played it for 2 days. First time for both players, me and the other guy. And we spent about 2 days on it, and we got into 1942. But we actually hit one of the Soviet sudden death victory conditions, and I was playing the Soviets, so I won, which was great. But really neat game, and it has spawned an entire series, or family, if you like, of games. The Dark This, or The Dark That, or The Deadly Woods, which was published by Revolution Games, but which uses very similar mechanics to The Dark Valley. I haven't played any of the other ones, but this one is terrific. All right, the 4th edition of Flying Colors. Now, wait a minute. God damn it, GMT. As an added incentive, they're including half a dozen brand new scenarios, including Lagos and Cape Spartel. I'm probably going to pass on this because I have the previous printing, which also included the Ship of the Line expansion, which was the only expansion that they did for Flying Colors, as far as I recall. Everything else is comes in a box and is like a standalone game. But you needed Flying Colors to play Man of War. And the last printing of Flying Colors had the Man of War stuff in it. Is that what it's called? I'm sorry, not Man of War, Ship of the Line. Man of War would be an entirely different game, which I've also played, actually. So, cool naval battle series. I like it quite a bit. We're close to 9 p.m. Thanks, Danny, for reminding people to hit the thumbs up. And Christopher Smith says Dark Valley is superb. That's a steal at $55. Sometimes I just decide I can live without the half dozen extra scenarios here. In the case of Chariots of Fire, I think I'm probably going to push the button on that because I'm super interested in those in that particular era. I somehow got interested in the Maccabean period. So, not a lot on that period. So we're probably going to buy that. This one I'm probably going to pass on, but I've got the previous printing, so I'll be fine. All right, I've already gushed about the Dam Buster raid quite a bit, and the same thing, all the same commentary certainly applies to Enemy Coast Ahead, the Doolittle raid. But it's obviously the Doolittle raid. Some people will probably be more into this topic. It's kind of a U.S.-facing topic rather than a British-facing topic. That might make the decision for some people. I think this is just as good a game, if not better, than the Dam Buster game. I would be delighted if Jerry would do more games in this series. That would be awesome. All right. Next up is a second printing of the first American Revolution tri-pack. Now, I've got the old one. No errata will be corrected. I'm happy with what I got. I've got errata counters. I can always download the rules errata. That's not a big deal. So this is $51 P500, $81 regular price. This is a very good buy. This is the first 3 games in the Battles of the American Revolution series designed by Mark Miklos, which has been a very successful series for GMT. They're going to play a ton of it down at their Revolutionary event in July. And this actually has 4 battles in it. Utah Springs is the 4th one. It's like on the back of Guilford or something like that. So you're getting like a lot of content here. The system itself, I've noodled with it, haven't really played a full game of it, is easy to play, it's easy to run. I have a pretty high opinion of this series based on my relatively limited exposure so far. All right, there's apparently a thing going on. Oh, and it's Brant's fault, of course. It's always Brant's fault. I mean, it's Brant's fault if it's not Dan's fault. So once again, another one of these value-packed combo packs from GMT. Highly worthwhile if you're interested in this topic. Next up is Volko's our first big splash game out of like the 3 or 4 big splash games he's done. Wilderness War. This is the French and Indian War. I don't have this. I've never played this. I'd really like to play this, actually. It is a point-to-point CDG on the French and Indian War. Do we have a map here? It'd be nice if we did. Yep, here it is. Well, a little map section anyway. So you can see that, yes, it's a point-to-point map. This is supposed to be really good. And I would like to play this. I don't have a lot on the French-Indian War. No, I've got like a couple of battle games that were mostly magazine games, I think. And I've got End of Empire, which covers this as well as a number of other things. Kevin Featherly says Wilderness War is peak CDG. And Groove and Hooves says I should definitely play it. And Mark Miklos is an awesome guy, too, if I didn't say that before. Real Time says that the Revolutionary War meetup is actually in September in Camden, South Carolina. So I have just assumed that it was in July. Mike Reed rebought an entire set of ASL modules, but because most of the first sets were worn out and the images quality of the counters under MMP. Yes, the more recent ASL stuff from MMP has like slightly enlarged the print, and it's got a higher DPI on the counters. They're just a little easier to read. I ended up acquiring all of the current modules from MMP. The core modules anyway. I have not bought all the historicals, and I'm not going to. If MMP, if you're watching, if you do something on, it's like another Stalingrad historical module or reprint Valor of the Guards, I'll probably buy that. And Kevin Featherly points out that Bayonetta Tomahawks is also a great French and Indian War game. I haven't played that. I'd like to play that too. You don't have Mike Reed is boycotting Volko stuff until Hunt for Blackbeard shows up. The good news is I will confirm that Hunt for Blackbeard should be along pretty soon. So, and I am also reasonably sure that it's not Kevin Bertram's fault either, the delay on that. I think they had an artist issue for that and a couple other things. So that was the cause. And COVID was in there too, to be fair. So that, if they got messed up, and I'm not shocked. All right, so Wilderness War is definitely on a want list. Arquebus Second Printing. This is Volume 4 in the Men of Iron series, designed by Richard Berg. This is kind of Berg as anti-Berg, in a way. There's a couple examples of this that I could point out, but I'm going to use Men of Iron. So Berg games have sort of this reputation for excessive chrome and noodliness and stuff like that. And that reputation is not infrequently deserved. I don't mind a certain level of attractive chrome. It is, however, also possible to maybe have a little too much attractive chrome. Men of Iron is a game system that really doesn't do that. This is Battles of the Italian Wars, 1495 to 1544. Also a super interesting period, actually. Again, they're not that mechanically similar, but I will compare it to the Battles of the American Revolution by saying that these are very easy to play. These battles are very easy to play. This is Volume 4. It's doing okay on the order count, but that's it. Richard Berg was kind of the Prince of Chrome. Kevin Featherly is lording Vietnam 1965 to 75 to play at SD HistCon North. I will come and say hi and take pictures of that. That's going to be awesome. So that's another game. I've played like a couple of the shorter scenarios. I'd really kind of like to play the full game at some point. But I'm also aware that I'm also aware that that is going to be a project game. It's not a fast game if you're playing the campaign game. Prophecy Albion says that Arquebus is about the introduction of gunpowder, which is the transition point to the musket and pike. Yeah, yes, that's true. There should be gunpowder in this. So, I've got Lance Connect. That's awesome. All right, I haven't played any of the battles in Arquebus. Paths of Glory. This is a phenomenal game. It is one of the pinnacles of CDG design, I think. It is, in many ways, not the greatest historical model, but it is an absolutely tremendous game. And again, you could play this in, if, again, you got people that know what they're doing, you can play this in an afternoon. I have got... Dustin Mitchell says, I'll play Nevsky. Awesome. I'll play any living campaign game would be fine. It doesn't have to be Nevsky. Mike Reed says that the Hunt for Blackbeard Kickstarter came out after COVID. It was more of a tariff quality issue. Oh, there's that too. Been a long time, though. It has been quite a while. And there's a couple of things in the cooker from Port Circle that have people who've been waiting quite a while for. So there's a good chance you'll see a video from me on that whenever it does show up. All right, so moving on from that, let's take a, again, I don't have the clip available to me at this time, so we'll just talk about what a great sponsor Noble Knight Games is and how I rely on them to ship me delicious war games from time, and RPG stuff from time to time. There's a reason my Traveler collection looks like it does. Although, you know, I haven't taken up that much more space since Noble Knight became a sponsor. But it is a place where you got a good chance of finding even pretty rare and obscure stuff. And, you know, sometimes the prices are high, but sometimes they're very inexpensive. As an example, I bought, so I had, it's going to be an RPG example. This is Traveler 5, what we call Traveler 5. This is not the Traveler 5e thing that just got crowdfunded. That's a completely different thing. This is Mark Miller's Traveler 5. And I got this exceptionally handsome 3-book slipcase set. However, this is the second version of Traveler 5. The first version, well, I guess the first version of Traveler 5 were the playtest files that were in circulation for many years. The first version was this thing, this massive, I don't even know how many pages are in this book, because 650 or so, because I use and I do use Traveler 5 as a referee resource, and I have used book 3 especially quite a lot. I got this from Noble Knight. It was like $50. Which is about half of what it was MSRP back in the day. And I mean, I realize that this isn't to me, but it's signed by Mark, which is fantastic. So there's that too. I actually already had Mark's signature on some of the classic reprints that Far Future had done. But now I can say that I have the big black book as well. And Noble Knight does buy games, and I myself have sold stuff to Noble Knight, and was somebody said, it might have been Fucko, I'm not sure that it was, says, oh, you got all this stuff laying around in totes, you're going to unload this stuff, you should probably just take it up to Half Price Books. I'm like, what? No. I'll let it pile up for a couple of years if necessary and drive it up to Noble Knight, because they'll actually give me much more reasonable prices. Are you going to get what they're going to charge for it? Obviously not. That's not how economics works. But they do buy games, and they give reasonable prices, and they will deal either in cash or in-store credit. So, Gwen Manifold says, only the games that I want are high. I've seen that happen. That's just the market, folks. If they're putting a price that you consider ludicrous on something, and this happens all the time to me, and then it is instantly gone, well, I guess it wasn't too high of a price because somebody paid it. And Noble Knight does sales all the time, discount codes pretty regularly, so worth your time, and it's a great way to support the channel if you use the affiliate link in the video description. So for those who might be confused about how to use the affiliate link, it's this simple. You click on the link, it will bring up Noble Knight's website, and then you buy something, and that's it. It's not more complicated than that. All right. Half-price crooks, as I call them, like to do things like, I'm going to give you a nickel for this copy of War in Europe, and we will sell it for $500, and we will tape the boxes closed with packing tape so that they cannot be inspected, and nor can the packing tape be removed. I have bought war games at half-price books in the past, but not in years. Their prices are ridiculous. You can't. If you take them up to the counter, they'll let you open them, but you've still got packing tape on the box. It's going to wreck the box if you open it. So, Noble Knight all the way on that. So be sure to stop by at our good friends at Noble Knight Games, folks, the official sponsors of the Counter Clipping Show. So let's resume our discussion of cool GMT games on reprint pre-order at the moment. Paths of Glory. These were my first videos that kind of hit big, and I think at least one of those videos is over 25,000 views at this point. There was supposed to be about 6 of them. I believe I did 3 or 4. I did get through most of the game system in a tutorial series, and somewhat miraculously, nobody has actually said I made any mistakes in those, but they are tutorial videos, not playthrough videos. Playthrough video, I'm going to make mistakes. That's just going to happen. If I'm explaining the rules, then I am explaining the rules from the rules, and I'm much more likely to get it correct. Kevin Featherly, there is no obvious visual cue that you are in fact crediting anyone in particular. You are not missing anything. I did actually ask them about this, and they said that it's going to be, it's on their timetable of things that they want to do with the website. It's just not quite there yet. Bayonet Brant says, Fort Circle Kickstarters. If any of you are coming to Origins, you may ask Kevin Bertram in person or sending a birthday greeting today. It's his birthday. Happy birthday, Kevin Bertram. Did I have this topic chosen for the conversation? Nope. I'm not that. Mark McNair asks, did I have this topic chosen before the conversation with John Kranz, or was the timing just fortunate? Nope, that was the conversation with John last night that gave me the idea for this. I'm like, I can get a show out of that, no problem. There's a shitload of reprints on P500 now, though. Paths of Glory, phenomenal game. These more recent printings do include the extra cards, at least, and other additional material from the Paths of Glory Player's Guide. And there's at least one new scenario. I've got like an old one, so I think I have a second printing, or whatever the first printing that they did on a mounted map was. I want to say the first printing was a paper map. But fantastic game, just a really great World War I game, and also a very influential game in the sense that it showed people, not just wargamers, but wargame designers, hey, we can get some cool games out of World War I. It's not just a hideous, boring slog of dudes bleeding to death in a trench. All right, this is not a war game, but I decided to leave it on the list anyway. This is Mark Herman's book, War Games According to Mark, a historian's view of wargame design. Much of this is reprinted from his Cleo's Corner column in C3I Magazine, but I'm pretty sure there's some new stuff on this as well. I've got this, I started reading it, and immediately got distracted by something else. And it was, I think, written, like, it was published very shortly after Peter Perla passed away, who did do the foreword. And I think this is one of the forwards. I think there's a Dunnigan forward or preface or something like that as well here. The amount of game design wisdom, I got to see this in action. I was at WBC a couple years ago, and I was kind of hanging around, and Mark was there, and like random people with game designs would come up to him and explain their game design for 5 minutes, and then Mark would talk for 10 or 15 minutes about, okay, so if you just like map this out this way, blah 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 blah, blah, and it's like, wow, this gentleman knows what he's doing. I mean, that wasn't news, but it was kind of amazing to see it in action. The Rhodes system. So the design there, the two games we're talking about on the Rhodes system are both published by GMT some time ago, both by Vance von Boris, Rhodes to Moscow and Rhodes to Leningrad. There is some old video content on both of these games that is worth your time. These are fantastic war games. Chit pull, very soloable, very operational. None of them are enormous. You get basically 2 scenarios, or maybe 4 scenarios in each box. Each game comes with one double-sided map. So there's like 2 battles and then 2 scenarios for each battle, as I recall. Terrific series, and they had a reprint of Rhodes to Leningrad up at one point, and nobody pre-ordered it. I talked about it all I could. So, oh yeah, Peter Perla passed 2024, early 2024, I think. It was a rotten year for wargaming, to be completely honest about it. Also the book is the printing of the book. I don't know what GMT's book printing is going to be like, and yeah, I'm pleased to say it's really nice. There's a dust jacket, but the book is actually also has the same art on it as well. So highly promising. If you're interested in wargame design, this is one you should probably pick up. All right, speaking of Mark Herman, Rebel Fury, Battles of the American Civil War. So this is the first game in the Civil War Heritage series. Second game is already out, actually just came out. That is Army of the Potomac. This contains 5 Civil War battles. Okay. Chickamauga, Chattanooga, Missionary Ridge, Chancellorsville, and Fredericksburg. Fredericksburg's solitaire because it kind of should be in this system. So the series here dates from Mark's Gettysburg game that was originally produced in C3I Magazine. Now, I tried that at the time and was like not sold on it. I'm like, I don't know, man. There's like 15 counters here total. I'm not sure I'm into that. But then the next issue of C3I had the Waterloo game in it, which uses pretty much the same system, and which is kind of clarifies that the system had, at least to me, that the system has really more of an operational flavor. And then, having played Rebel Fury and having played Army of the Potomac, this is an actually terrific series. It's got at least 2 rules that are the kind of rules where you look at it and say, really? This doesn't look like it's going to work. And then when you play it, it totally works. The fact that you technically don't have a movement rating, you just kind of keep moving until you can't anymore, it totally works. It works really well. So highly recommended. Also super easy to play. Very suitable for new war gamers, but and some people have described it as chess-like. That's not necessarily an attribute that makes me excited. And I do think, to some extent, it is chess-like, but I loved it. I think it's actually a fantastic series. And Mark's working on Volume 3 now, which is going to be called Lee moves north, and it's going to cover Antietam and Gettysburg and probably some other stuff that I don't remember at this exact moment. All right. Next up is another one that I have played, Congress of Vienna. So I think this is part of the Great Statesman series that was begun with Churchill, expanded to Pericles, kind of also expanded with Versailles 1919. It's a similar game to the Versailles, is a bit different, to be honest about it. This is more similar to Churchill. However, for clarity, the game is not just about. For those of you who've played Churchill, you might think, okay, so we're going to meet at the Congress of Vienna. We're going to play cards. No, it's the French are one of the 4-player positions here. So you're starting the game in, like, I don't know, 1812 or something like that. Maybe even 1811. And is Dan here? Dan is here. Look at that. Hey, Mr. Dan. The Dan Noodles man himself is in the house. Awesome. So, Congress of Vienna. Terrific game. I think it's more complicated than Churchill, but I like Churchill a lot, and I like this just as much. It is a very solid game. And from like a structural point of view, it's very similar to Churchill in a lot of ways. You've still got kind of the military tracks, and you've got the diplomatic display where you're haggling over the issues. So it's more similar to Churchill, even than Pericles, I think. But then again, I haven't played Pericles yet, so I might be wrong about that. Why am I not seeing? There he is. All right, next up is another from Ted Racer, The Dark Summer. Same system as the Dark Valley, more or less, as the Dark Valley, but a considerably smaller game. It is a one-map game. We'll look at the map right here. Do we get the whole map? We do. So I complained, and Ted schooled me on this, that you don't get the entire Cotentin Peninsula. That's the peninsula in the upper left that includes the city of Cherbourg. But in exchange, you get something that is maybe more interesting than the taking of Cherbourg, which is Operation Cobra, and the Breakout. And that's very attractive. And the system is, I haven't played this. I still have it, I believe. Mike Reed says that the Dan Sickles witness tree at Gettysburg lost a major limb in the recent storm. Sometimes the jokes do write themselves. How about that? So, if you have played the Dark Valley and know that it's good, then this is something that you want to look at. I've got kind of a lot of games that are kind of very similar to this. I've got Normandy 44 and a couple other ones. So this is kind of taking a back seat. I had June 6th, which is Richard Berg's take on the topic, for a while, and that's passed through my hands a couple of times. I haven't played that. That's also from GMT, but in no danger of being reprinted anytime soon, unlike the Dark Summer. $41 P500, 66 regular price. Even 66 isn't bad. All right, the legendary classic, Here I Stand. This is a great game with a couple of kind of significant caveats. The big caveat is that you really do kind of need 6 players for it, or it doesn't really work. You can kind of do it with 3, but it's not nearly as interesting or fun. There is a 2-player game that has been included, or 2-player version that has been included in the recent printings of Here I Stand. It's got its own like little deck. I haven't tried that. Maybe that's better, but I think like the kind of a big feature of the game is the person-on-person diplomacy of it. The other caveat, and I've said this numerous times, is that at least to me, not every faction is as interesting to play as every other faction. I like playing the English, weirdly enough. I like playing the Protestants. I really don't enjoy playing... I like playing the Papacy. I don't really enjoy playing the Ottomans, the French, or the Austrians. I do think this is an intentional piece of design. The Austrians, for example, are kind of a military conquest position, right? You're going to try to do military conquests, probably in coordination with the papacy. And if you're into that, then you might really enjoy playing the Austrians. But for me, I would just as soon get my military conquest button pushed by like a more wargamey war game. This is fairly wargamey, but there's also some pretty significant non-wargaming elements. There's been a couple of related games in this series too, including Virgin Queen, Tanto Manta, and the upcoming Foxes and Lions, which looks intriguing. I have played Virgin Queen as well as Here I Stand. I have not played Tanto Manta. I've heard mixed things about it. I think the rulebook might be a little messy, but I think there's probably a good game there too. And I expect Foxes and Lions to be very interesting as well. So highly worthwhile. This, of course, is the 500th anniversary reprint. For the People 25th anniversary reprint. This is the second printing with this tremendously great box. I really like the box. I ordered. I didn't need it particularly, but because I had For the People before. It's a fantastic game. I'll tell the story again very briefly. So I had owned a few Civil War games back in the day. I had maybe even played a Civil War game or two back in the day. But I was not a Civil War guy. I was not particularly interested in the American Civil War. It was just not a thing I was intrigued in. And then my wargaming buddy said, "Hey, I'm going to be up at Cabs. You want to play For the People?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And I played it, and I was immediately hooked. It's a terrific game. It's kind of I think what I think of as like the definitive Mark Herman CDG design is actually this game more than Empire of the Sun or Washington's War. This is considerably more complex than Washington's War, but I think it's absolutely worthwhile. It's just a terrific game. The other thing with John C. says that Tanto Manta has a huge learning curve, but only needs 4 instead of 6. Virgin Queen is, I think, almost exactly just as complicated as Here I Stand, but I think that it is a little more forgiving in terms of player count. You can do Virgin Queen with 5, maybe 4 people, where with Here I Stand, pick something else. At least twice when I've showed up at the planned Here I Stand game, there has been an absence, and we ended up playing Virgin Queen instead. The Holy Roman Empire has converted to Islam to spite the Spanish. That sounds fantastic, actually. All right, so For the People, highly recommended, highest possible recommendation for this. Same thing with Empire of the Sun, to be completely honest about it. If you're not into Civil War, beware, because this game can make you into Civil War. And speaking of Civil War, another great Civil War game is the Mark Simonich U.S. Civil War. This could be the third printing of this. There is a decent amount of revision between the first and second printings of this. It's a terrific game. It is inspired by, but by no means identical to, hi McKenna, the classic victory games, The Civil War by Eric Lee Smith, which is a seminal game. I think this game is I think, somewhat more approachable, particularly if you don't bother with the advanced naval rules, which I think really are optional. I think you can live without them. It's not like the next war where, yeah, I'm missing so much of what this game has to show me if I don't play with the advanced rules. In this case, I don't think you need to play with the advanced rules, which are all naval anyway. Terrific game. You could play this in a day if everybody knows what they're doing. All right. Time check. We are good on time. I have a lot of games on this list, and we're going to get through them. All right, so Plains Indian Wars. This is a game by John Paniski. I actually got a chance to play this at SD HistCon in whenever that was that I was at SD HistCon. It was a fantastic time, and I like this game. I think it's pretty good. We did have somebody teaching it to us. I think most of the people playing had not played it before. It is a 2 or 4 player game. There are 2 Native American positions and 2 U.S. positions, and it is, honestly, I think it's a really solid game. However, aside from any issues that the rulebook has, it's depressing to play because I was playing as the Native Americans and I was thinking toward the end of the game, and I'm getting absolutely steamrolled by the one veteran player who's teaching the game, who's also playing like the U.S. cavalry. I'm like, well, this is a really fun genocide simulator you're got going on here. It partly tongue in cheek, but it's like, wow, it's gonna be tough to win this as the Native Americans. But I do think it's a pretty cool game. Is it a war game? I wouldn't. I'd say this game is maybe a 20% war game. How does it compare to Geronimo or Once We Broke Like the Wind? I don't know. I haven't played either of those games. Nor have I played Comancheria, which is a Joel Toppin design, or Navajo Wars, which is another Joel Toppin design. This might be the only game I have played involving Native Americans other than the Victory Game Civil War, where you can have some Native American activity out in the West. Is it realistic? I don't know enough about the period to be... I'm not the guy to ask. I could say that I think it's a well-designed game, and I think the game is pretty fun, as genocide simulators go. Triumph and Tragedy, European Balance of Power. This is from Block Game Maestro, Craig Besink. This is a 3-player World War II game, very sandboxy. You are in almost no case going to get out of this game anything resembling the historical World War II. That said, it's still a pretty cool game, and the Pacific version of it, Conquest of Consequences, I was expecting it to be kind of a dud. I was surprised to find out it's not a dud. It's actually fun and engaging in its own accord, and there's a sci-fi version of this system coming soon as well. I've never owned this, but I've played this like 4 times at this point. I think it's a terrific game. Legion Wargames does have a whole series. I think there's 3 games in the series on Indian Wars. Rosebud Creek, Little Bighorn, and there's another. I think there's one more. Once We Broke Like the Wind. French. I've never played a French and Indian War game, so there you go. All right, next up, and second to last, is Silver Bayonet, the first team in Vietnam, 1965. This is Gene Billingsley design. The new version is credited to Gene and Mitch Land. This is the one that I have. So Silver Bayonet was the first game released by GMT back in the day. I think they had 2 other ones that came out in quick succession, one of which was Airbridge to Victory. The other one was Guadalcanal was the topic, but that's not what it was called. In any case, it's a super early GMT game that got refinished, repurposed, redone in this second printing. I have the previous printing of the second version. It's really nice. You might look at it and assume it to be a tactical game based on the unit sizes, but that is a mistaken apprehension. This is very much like, very much an operational game system. And if you think about Vietnam, these unit sizes actually make sense operationally for the Vietnam War. There's a whole bunch of scenarios in here, including Ia Drang, which is very famous because it was in We Were Soldiers. And there's very much, if you're interested in Vietnam at all, well, I'd probably send you to 3 things. I'd send you to this, Silver Bayonet, a Hot Dry Summer, or Hot Dry Season, whenever it comes out from Snafu Studios, and the either Victory Games or GMT's version of Vietnam 65 to 75. Jonathan Dyer says that the Legion War Games, Indian Wars games, are all sold out with no view to a reprint. Thank you, Meandering Mike. Meandering Mike always comes through with this stuff. The game I'm thinking of was Operation Shoestring. That is absolutely correct. And it is the Guadalcanal campaign. It's actually a pretty interesting looking Guadalcanal game. I've seen it set up. I've never played it or looked at it particularly. All right, last on the list is James Day's Panzer, 4th printing on this. Straight reprint because the game didn't need any additional refitting. If you are interested in World War II tactical, but you would like a more tank-forward game than, say, ASL typically is, then this is your game. This is also pretty modular, so you can play it either way. You could play it, you can incorporate the advanced optional rules as you wish. Let me put it that way. All right. And we, of course, had James Day on the show to talk about Panzer and the other things that he's working on. All right, folks, we're going to wrap this show up slightly early tonight, but I'm proud of myself for having gotten through this enormous pile of games. There will be a video unboxing on Thursday, which is tied to WoW, the new edition from Clash of Arms. So check that out, and do check out last night's terrific interview with John Krantz if you haven't watched it already. Everybody have a great rest of the night. We'll see you all again soon.